Hey everybody, today I will be reviewing the series Uzumaki by the horror master Junji Ito. Please note this is about the series, not the film. Alright, let's move on. The series is about a town and its people that slowly become obsessed slash cursed with spirals. That's right, spirals. I'll be reviewing the series by volume. There are 3 volumes, and then I will do an overall view as well as maybe a theory or two. Alright, so let's start with the beginning. First of all, I apologize, I don't know how to properly pronounce the names. I will study that next time. So, the protagonists of the story are 2 young lovers, Kiri and Suichi. Suichi's father is one of the first individuals possessed by the spiral obsession. Now, as each chapter goes along, the obsession itself not only spreads, but it becomes on a larger scale. It affects more people each chapter. That point alone, with this volume in general affecting not so many people, could be a selling point or a non-selling point for you readers out there. I feel that as a volume, it's a solid standalone book. It doesn't quite match the author's other stories in terms of like actual scariness, but I feel that's how it has to be to help build the setting for the next volumes. The ending chapter of volume 1 actually has some of the most iconic imagery of the series, meaning that if you see a picture of a cosplayer or maybe just a drawing, you'll easily be able to relate it to Uzumaki. And that would be the chapter Medusa with the 2 characters who get the obscenely huge hair. That hair is crazy. I mean, it's bigger than a telephone pole by the end of the chapter. Sorry for spoilers. Anyway, now on to Volume 2. Volume 2 one-ups the previous volume in terms of scale and terror. However, it's during this volume you begin to wonder if anything is actually going to be a consequence in the later chapters. I mean, 2 guys turn into snails, and then mate, and then have eggs, and then disappear. So what? There's nothing else mentioned in any other chapter except for in the next volume, and you really start to lose a connection towards the series as a whole. The hospital chapter in this volume is one that I believe is the most gross overall in the series. It's without spoiling it. It just deals with a topic that I've always thought was gross, because people really do it in real life, and I think there's also another element in the story that makes it slightly more disturbing. And even though this chapter is probably the grossest that you will read in the series, it's not mentioned ever again except for maybe one passing line in a later volume. Anyway, volume 2 is where you're going to find the most terror. I actually found the final chapter, Eye of the Hurricane, to be probably the most scary, as I think the whole actual literal eye of a hurricane was pretty. It was actually really scary, seeing the eye being reflected off like the signs and junk. That was scary. Before I go on to volume 3, I just want to apologize. It seems that the microphone I'm using is not doing so well. That's okay. I will give the microphone a proper burial. And, yes, rest in peace, microphone. Anyway, volume 3 is the final volume, and it's definitely the oddball of the whole series. The author ditches his traditional style, as the story is now completely linear. Each chapter picks up immediately where the last one left off. There is now a deep coherency in terms of the Uzumaki world as well. All of the past chapters and events are tied together in this volume. The beginning of this volume was definitely odd. I know what splits fans, because and sorry for spoiling this, but I know a lot of people I know many fans weren't happy with the whole tornado riders, as that sort of deviated from the feeling of the book, I actually enjoyed it. I think it was a good way to bring you back into the story after the town was destroyed in the last volume. In particular, this volume does make a pretty big deal out of the fact that people do turn into snails. I am glad they finally brought that around again. I thought that's definitely something they should have been mentioning throughout the entire series, or throughout the entire volume after it was mentioned and it happened. It's actually disturbing what they do to those people, and I thought that was actually pretty scary in this chapter, or in this volume, as this volume itself is not very terrifying. In fact, it's almost comical in a way, how exaggerated some things become. The final few chapters, they it's interesting. I know many people often criticize the writer and author Junji Ito for his poor endings and weak endings. I think this could have done a little bit different. Could have been done a little bit different. However, I think it was pretty interesting. The spiral houses, or the giant spiral house, I wasn't too much of a fan of that. I did like how the house would build itself, how the people were building so fast that if someone even was in a house for too long, they'd be built inwards into the house. I thought that was good, but I did not like that whole spiral house chapter, even if it did make sense in the context of the story. The final chapter, the ending, the very ending. Sorry for spoiling this, but I do need to address this. I think it was maybe. I think it could have been effective if the author hadn't made that sort of explanation so grand. We end with seeing a gigantic underground city or layer, or just a gigantic cave that's made out of people, and everyone's still alive. It's like a gigantic living organism underground. And then the two protagonists themselves, and they finally give in to the spiral. However, they die loving each other in each other's arms. Literally, actually, because they both entangle each other in their arms. I think maybe if they didn't spend so much time making that underground organism so fantastic and spending so many lines detailing it, it could have been a better ending. However, I'd have to say the ending of the series was probably average, maybe mediocre. However, I think that is a classic sign of a Junji Ito work, as the endings are slightly weaker than the story themselves. Overall, I'd say this is a very strong series. It's good. I wouldn't recommend this as a good example of the author's work. I would suggest you, if you want to start recommending Junji Ito to your friends, I'd suggest you give them some of his short stories, and in fact not Uzumaki. I don't think this is his strongest. I think out of his series, this is the strongest. I was not a fan of his Gyo, or actually I did not finish reading the other, so I can't say anything about that. But yes, this is a definite for fans of the author, or fans of different slash scary other scary stories. This is not the entryway for people into Junji Ito's work. This is I'd say sort of a entry level horror story. As for theories, I have a few theories on the ending. However, I don't have time to fully go into them. I encourage you to actually write down what you feel was the whole story behind the spiral. I think that the bonus chapter at the end, in fact, has the answers to the whole story itself. Anyway, thank you for listening. I am sorry if there was a noticeable drop in audio quality, but hey, at least you made it here. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy reading the story. You should purchase it. Never download or pirate anything. You need to support awesome authors and artists like Junji Ito. And you know what? Just stick it to the big man. Forget those guys. Support your good authors like this. That is all. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for listening. Have fun. Have a nice day. Be scared for life. That's my motto. Have a happy reading, folks.